name is David Stott. I was the chairman of Spearhead Exhibitions Limited, we were the founders of Offshore Europe in 1975, having previously run a show in Aberdeen called Offshore Scotland in 1973. I ran the show for 25 years before I sold it. Basically, I'd been involved with a small show in Great Yarmouth in 1971 called Ocean X about the Southern North Sea. And at the time, they were announcing all the exploration finds in the Northern North Sea. And I knew Aberdeen a little bit because I'd been involved as the editor of Commercial Fishing Journal, and I'd spent a lot of time there in the 1960s. So it seemed to me that Aberdeen would be the ideal place for an oil show, looking forward. And I went to Aberdeen. The university were very kind to me, offered me a site in the chemistry car park, actually, to put some tents up, which I duly did. And they had the art centre as the conference place. And it was in March, and I was told by our Dutch exhibitors that I was mad, crazy to have the show in March. It actually went very well, in 70 degrees and a blue sky, with about, I think, 70 exhibitors. And everybody seemed to be quite pleased with it. What I do recall is that the day after the show ended, it snowed in Aberdeen, so we were very lucky. That, of course, was the precursor to Offshore Europe. And obviously we knew we had something much bigger on our hands. We were a very small business, very inexperienced at exhibition organising. But 75 came along, and that's where Tentitoon originated. We were offered a big site at the Bridge of Don, which you know, and we developed this show at a speed that amazed us completely, and we were, frankly, deluged by exhibitor inquiries, and we really didn't have any infrastructure to make any sense of. But we put it all together as best we could. I'd hired some people who were technical exhibition experts, and they did their best. But frankly, when the show came, it was clear that we were really badly underprepared. On the opening morning of the show, the centre of Aberdeen was completely locked down. Cars could not move, and I found myself with the Secretary of State for Scotland being driven in the official car down the wrong side of the road towards the exhibition centre from the conference hall, with co-motorists who were there, had been there for hours, shaking their fists as we went past. It was that bad. Somehow, and then of course it rained like hell for a couple of days. We finally just about got through it, but it's fairly obvious that even though the show, I suppose, commercially worked fairly well, the infrastructure was a complete disaster, and we had to do better. Well, the most memorable, I suppose the first thing to say is between 75 and 85, it was a struggle to survive. Not because the show wasn't well received in terms of or sort of business being done, but because the infrastructure was so appallingly bad. And we were being increasingly told that we had to do better. And the only way we could do better was by making sure that there were some permanent buildings there. We were rather, a small company. We didn't have much in the way of resources, but we put so much money as we had into developing better facilities in terms of a much better space for flooring space for the exhibition. And ultimately, we hired some architects and got on with designing the original Bridge of Don buildings, which we part financed ourselves, but with help from Scottish Development Agency, the banks, and this and that and the other. And in 85, which is the most memorable year, I suppose, we opened those facilities. Mrs. Thatcher came to open the show, which was an enormous honour for us. And to that extent, from that point onwards, the show took on a much more appealing and professional appearance, although it cost us very dear because obviously we had financial constraints because of what we'd had to borrow to build the place. I think the two things that I can recall in particular are we had the Alpha Piper disaster in 1986, in which an awful lot of people lost their lives. And from that point onwards, health and safety became a key issue. It had not been really discussed at all before that, but from that point onwards in the conference and elsewhere, it became a major issue, very obviously. That was the first thing. And the second thing was that perhaps in the late 80s to the early 90s, all of a sudden, a great deal of talk about decommissioning and the cost of decommissioning and how it's going to be done and so on and so forth. And I'm not so sure whether that's still a conversation that's going on, but those are the two things that I recall as being most perhaps interesting developments in my time. Deeply important, obviously, as we all know, that's basically the whole basis of shows like ours or any other show. Face-to-face meetings, discussion between people, and the need to exchange ideas and information at all levels, at all times. So a show, any show, which is able to attract visitors who want to buy things and exhibitors who want to sell things, is doing a very, very good job indeed on behalf of that industry. The other thing I should say about that, of course, is in terms of a city like Aberdeen, what a show like ours brings to the table is an awful lot of expenditure of people into the city, direct investment and indirect investment in the way of hotel rooms and meals and et cetera, That's very, very important, of course, to any place which holds a major exhibition which is successful. I'm very proud of what we were able to do in Aberdeen as a result of starting that show and going through all the various vicissitudes and triumphs which it entailed over the period of years I was involved.